This first thing is the trial chamber. We have a new structure that's going to be introduced to the Minecraft game. It's going to house copper blocks and what looks like a new variant of tuff. I am actually guessing there just based on the color tone of the block, but to me it kinda looks like we have some new variants of tuff, which is really cool. In the structure itself, you may notice that there are some new copper blocks too. One of these is the copper bulb, which we'll get to in more detail in a bit. There are also copper grates, and I think later in the video you will notice that there are now copper trapdoors as well. All of this is really exciting. As you can see, the structure itself can be quite large in scale. However, the main room we're seeing at the moment is the corridor room. And it's been described that there can be generation with one corridor and a couple of different types of room attached to it, and then other ones that could have sprawling corridors with many rooms attached to it. So the variety in size here could be really big. Oh, and was that a copper door that I just noticed? Yeah, didn't see that the first time round. There's also these marked copper blocks too. I don't know what they're going to be called, but yeah, new blocks, always a good thing. So a classic Minecraft move, pillaring up the cobblestone. That block is the copper grate, by the way, and then we can see the other one which I don't know the name for. So we meet another Minecraft developer, and then we get to know about these decorative blocks. And I think she actually says that they're tough here. Pretty sure that's the word she uses. If it's not that word, something that sounded very similar. And they point out the nice design. They talk about the copper bulbs. You can also see the copper grates again in its oxidized form. Agnes then hints at how she's used these copper bulbs in a village, and we're going to see that village later. It has what look like polished tuff blocks with walls and stairs as well, and I actually found it in my notes. They did indeed call these tuff blocks. So then we have a transitional moment where Agnes walks around and we get to see the copper door again, which I think looks really fantastic, and they keep hinting at this theme of tinkering whilst talking about how players will use these blocks to express themselves and get creative, but tinkering seems to be a key word for this theme. So we then head up the stairs with Agnes to another floor in this structure, and she points out that there is a supply chest. Who knows what sort of supplies we'll find inside of it? Will there be any new items? I don't know, but the next thing we get introduced to is the copper bulb. So the idea here is that the more oxidized this block is, the dimmer it is, so it can be configured to emit multiple light levels. As you saw in the video, this is done by scraping the copper bulb with an axe, and it goes through the same 4 stages that copper does. It looked like the first one may have not emitted any light at all, but we'll have to get the game to find out. And just like copper blocks, we can expect these things to be waxed by honeycomb. So you can change it with an axe and you can preserve the light level with the honeycomb. It's also been communicated that this stuff interacts with redstone. You can control it with a redstone pulse to turn it on and off. This is different from a redstone lamp which you activate with a lever, and there's also plans to make it work with a comparator. So if you can pulse it with redstone and change the output of the comparator, you're essentially getting a 1-block T flip-flop. Now what we have next is the trial spawner. Yes, a new type of mob spawner. As you can see, it's got some orange pixels on the corners that you can kind of see in the dark, and when you activate this thing there's going to be a load of particle effects. But what's interesting about this spawner is that it actually scales up the amount of mobs that it spawns based on how many players it finds nearby. This spawner happens to have packed ice around it, and that means that it's going to spawn strays. And it's not going to spawn them continuously. There's actually going to be a set amount in total, and also a set amount that can be spawned at one time. All of this stuff is going to be highly customizable because it's powered by MBT, which map makers can take advantage of and give all sorts of properties to this mob cage. So it's going to be very manipulatable, and as you'll see here, it can also give you loot after you've done beating all of the mobs that it's spawned. Now you can break this thing, but it will take as long as it takes to break reinforced deep slate. So the idea is if you really need to get this thing out of your world, you can. But otherwise you can leave it there for other players to find in the future, because this thing actually has a really long cooldown, again something that can be customized, and then later on other players can come together and enjoy the challenge again. And if you returned with more friends, it would spawn more enemies because it adapts to the amount of players that are nearby. And best of all, I think, It's also explosion-proof, so no creepers annoyingly destroying that mob spawner you just found. So in this next part of the video, Agnes heads into a village